Hello and welcome to the Flipside. I am very happy to be back here in front of this camera. I hope that everybody is coming back into this and watching this now that we are at once a month. Just so to refresh your understanding, new episodes will drop the first Monday of each month. Um, Lighting the candle at both ends as a strategy in your life is not the best plan, and I was becoming a bit overwhelmed with everything that I had on my plate. So I dropping this to once a month was a necessary move. But I will tell you, I miss it. I miss it a lot. I really enjoyed doing this every single week. But for now, we're going to do it once a month and continue that. And who knows, in the future, we may increase the episodes if things work out. I will say this about the new schedule. The new schedule of doing this on the first Monday of every month, as far as when it's released, allows me now an entire month to think about what I want to do. And even more importantly, to be able to start having guests on here to have conversations. I've got two people lined up already. I'm hoping to have both of those taped soon and be able to have those for the next episodes. So I'm really looking forward to being able to interview some people and share some information with you guys from that perspective. So that's a good thing right there. So for today's episode, I wanted to just kind of play catch up. The last month or so since our last episode was released, there has been a lot of stuff that's been happening in the news and in the world. And a lot of that has had to do with MAHA. And at this point, if you've watched any of the episodes with me, you know how involved I am in that from an emotional and mental perspective, at least. I'm not on any kind of governing boards or anything, but I am there in the midst of this fight. It is one of the more important things that I think has happened to our country in a long, long time. And we're seeing some amazing and incredible progress and forward movement in the directions that we want to go. So I wanted to do a synopsis of what's been happening over the past month or so, give my views and opinions on that, show some research to back up certain things, and just play some catch up with the news. So that's what this show is going to be for today. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff that's been happening. If you are on social media at all, if you are on Twitter, just know I am on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I would love to have you on there. I am on Instagram. I am on Facebook. So I'm on all those platforms. And if you do any following of information on those platforms, one of the things that you will have noticed over the past month or so, and really not even over the past month or so, since January or February, however you want to start timing this, there's always the vocal group that complains, right? Complaints seem to be easier to find and louder than people who give compliments, unfortunately, and especially on formats like Twitter. And there is an incredibly vocal group of people who claim that they are all MAHA, that they're totally into the MAHA. And I'm not doubting that necessarily. I think for the most part, I don't think most of these people are trolls. I don't think most of these people are insincere in their passions or their desires to have some of these things change. But a lot of these people, and this comment was made by someone that I follow, and I totally agree with it. A lot of these people who are on Twitter, who are very vocal, who are, part of the MAHA movement, are fresh. They're fresh off the boat, so to speak, right? They are babies in this. They became aware in COVID. During COVID, they became aware, and I'm incredibly thankful for that. I really am. I'm very thankful for all the people who became woke, if you'll let me use that term in a positive way, who became woke regarding the disaster and the censorship and the corruption and all that garbage that people became aware of during COVID. They became aware of that and they became active. And I'm really happy for that. There's a whole list of medical doctors who are now on board with this campaign, who before you never heard a peep from. They were very silent. They promoted vaccines and they did everything else, but COVID woke them up to the realities. It's a lot of the complaints are coming from that group. And I think one of it is because they are babies in this. They have not been in this movement for very long. They have not seen the depth of involvement, the depth of compassion, the depth of intelligence and forthright information and heartfelt support that Kennedy has been showing this group of people, okay, which was Health Freedom before it was MAHA, for decades. He has been in this and he has been in it tooth and nail for a long time. And we who have been in this for decades know him as a man of character, know him as someone who keeps his promises, know him as someone who has supported all of these warrior moms who are dealing with autism directly, these warrior dads too, who has fought side by side with all of us in our state capitals, trying to make sure that we have and maintain the rights for freedom, for health freedom. And we've been there and we've seen that. For those who are new to this, they haven't seen that. They're just getting onto the bandwagon. They haven't seen that. So they don't connect with him maybe to the depth that a lot of us do. And I think it's that is the beginning point of their observations. And so, they're like, this has to be done now. Hurry up. Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? Why haven't you removed all the COVID vaccines? Why haven't you removed all the childhood vaccines? There's so much unrealistic expectations for what he is able to do within this first 100 days, right? We have just begun in this position. We've been fighting this fight for a long time, but now with our generals in position for this fight, we have got all the people lined up now. We've got Kennedy, we've got Bhattacharya, we've got Makary. I hope I'm getting his name correct. Makary. We got all the people in the right positions, and that is one of the things that Kennedy was trying to do here in the first 100 days is get that set up. He needs his support around him in these positions for him to move forward and start to make real change. And that had to be set up first. It wasn't a matter of, okay, I went through confirmation, now I'm just going to change everything. There's no way you do that. You don't do it in politics in general. You don't do it in corporations in general necessarily. He needed to go in there and work that system. And the best thing he could do is wait for support. And he's got that support now. And now you really see him capitalizing on that. And he's jumping ahead and he's making movements. And now things are really starting to change. And so whatever slow start we may have had, it's starting to build on itself now. And so hopefully all of these naysayers, these people who like to say they're on the side of MAHA and say that they support Bobby, but then in the next breath condemn him for not doing exactly what they wanted him to do immediately. Hopefully you can calm the fuck down and you can take a step back and support the man for what he is doing and what he's trying to do, because he's out there fighting the good fight for us and trying to create change. So have some faith, have some patience, and let him do his job. Okay. So I wasn't really expecting myself to go full force like that with all these new people, and like I said, I am incredibly thankful that we have all of these newbies on board this train of health that we're trying to bring to everybody. So I'm very grateful. So please, accept that aspect of what I'm saying as well, but just have patience. That's really what I'm saying. Just have patience. So let's talk about some of the exciting stuff, because there really is exciting stuff happening in the world of MAHA, in the world of health for our citizens. American citizens are in dire need of health. They're in dire need of help. And they are in dire need of a system that is not built up and created to tear them down and to hinder their progression towards health. And in reality, CDC, FDA, NIH, HHS, all of those systems are built to support each other, and the model does not really support trying to fix problems that are existing, that are roadblocks to us being healthy, a healthy nation. And that's really the part that is being torn down by Kennedy, is that. And the media, and we'll say legacy media, and hopefully everybody understands what I mean by that. I'm sure you do. The legacy media, their response, their reaction to what Kennedy is trying to do is, of course, to badmouth him, to make up all sorts of nonsense, to try to put information out there to rile up their liberal base and make them angry and make them, oh, Kennedy, oh, and get all aggro about that. This is one of the multitude of problems I have with the legacy media, and it's one of the main reasons why I hope and pray that the legacy media is just going to collapse, that their ignorance in how they are addressing problems and how they are going about addressing their viewers is going to bring about their demise. Because I don't trust them at all anymore. There's not one word that comes out of most legacy media information that I even give a whit for. It's ridiculous. I don't trust what they're saying. And that comes from when I understand a topic really, really well. I understand the topic of vaccines incredibly well. I've been looking at it for a long time. I understand Kennedy and his motivations real well because I have been following him and watching him like a hawk for over 2 decades. And so when I hear the legacy media make certain comments around those topics, and I know how incredibly misleading that those are, it just allows me to not trust anything that they say, because if they're going to lie so blatantly about these topics, then how do I trust anything else that they're saying? And I'm sure there's people out there who are listening who have their own expertise in certain areas. Maybe you're more of an expert in, tariffs and financial stuff. I know nothing about that stuff. And you understand that concept better than somebody else. And you can then listen to the legacy media and hear how they're representing things and say, well, that's just blatantly not true, or that's very lopsided viewpoint of that, and they're not showing the other half. And then you can look at that and say the same thing. If they're going to lie about that, why trust them on anything else? So we're going to look at some of that today. We're going to look at some of what the media has been saying and talk about, the BS, the blatant lies, the misleading, misconstrued ideas that they're putting out there. But let's talk about some of the successes, okay? One of the big things that just came out recently, and hopefully a lot of you saw the press conference that was with Kennedy, Bhattacharya, and I'm always missing his name, Makary. I apologize to the doctor for messing up his name. I should have that down better before I start doing this, but that's on me. Is the situation with food dyes. Now, once again, I've heard lots of bad people saying bad things about that, how it's really nothing. It doesn't really add up or mean anything. And I would argue that I don't agree with that at all. I don't think that's something that is accurate. So what happened with food dyes? So if you haven't been following the news, if you're someone who's avoiding the legacy media, so therefore you don't really understand what's going on, I don't blame you for that. Kennedy and the FDA have essentially created agreements, and this is not written in stone yet, as far as them making some kind of signed agreement, but they came up with agreements with the major food companies to have them begin eliminating food dyes. And these are the chemical food dyes. These are food dyes that are made from petroleum products and then placed into our foods. Now, right off the bat, if you heard, yes, I'm going to create a food dye and I'm going to make it out of petroleum products and then I'm going to stick it into your food. Well, petroleum, we're talking about oil, right? We're talking about petroleum products being converted into something that we can put into our foods. And that alone, right off the bat, should make you think, well, do I really want petroleum food products? No, I don't want that, you know. But of course, it takes years of fighting and arguing for anybody to then say, well, let's not do that. So I wanted to show you something real quick. This is there's a company. If you're not aware of this organization, it is CSPI. CSPI stands for Center for Science in the Public Interest. An amazing and fantastic company. They've been around for decades, a long time. I don't know exactly when they started, but I know that I used to get their newsletter in the 80s. I used to get their newsletter. So I've been following them and reading the information for a long, long time. And they look at science, and they're looking at science in the public interest. And a lot of that is in food. And so food, cleaning products, all sorts of things like that. But food is the big thing. And so they've been giving out nutrition information and warning people about artificial sweeteners and dyes in the foods and all sorts of things for a long, long time. Let me go ahead and share the screen here. Here you go. They came up with this, and I'm going to see if I can actually come up with the date here. Whoop, that was not what I wanted to do. Let's see if I can. Well, I don't have a date on this, but this is from CSPI, and this is a 68-page document that they came out with talking about food dyes and the risks of food dyes and what we should be doing about it. So this is basically their public statement paper on food dyes. And I'll look at the, I'll go ahead and do it now. Let's see if I can scroll down to the bottom and see if it has a date on it. This is all the research here. I'm still not seeing a date on this. I remember seeing a date at one point, and I don't know where I saw it, but this came out quite a long time ago. This is not a brand new thing. Their information has been going on for a while. But anyway, regardless, let's look at the next page here. They're talking about the different food dyes, and I'm going to blow this up here. And so you can see blue 1, blue 2, citrus red 2, green 3, et cetera, all the way down there. And look at what I've highlighted here. So this is their review of the scientific literature. For blue number 1, test tube study found inhibition of nerve cell development. Blue number 2, possible brain and bladder tumors. Citrus red number 2, bladder tumors and other tumors. Green 3, possible bladder and other tumors. Orange B, they just said toxic in rats. They didn't specify. Red 3, thyroid tumors. Red 40, possible reticuloendothelial tumors of the immune system. Doesn't sound good, does it? No. Yellow 5, 6 of 11 studies showed genotoxicity and hyperactivity development in children. Yellow 6, possible adrenal and testicular tumors. So the information on how bad these dyes are, it's been out there. It's been out there for a long time. This is not something that's new information. The companies that use these dyes know of these studies. They know these studies, okay? Now, there are going to be other studies that are going to say, oh, well, this is false. And I will tell you that for a lot of those, and I'm not saying it's all of them, but for a lot of those, go back and look who paid for those studies. And it's the companies that are using these things that produce those studies. You can't always trust those studies. And the other thing is, if you have enough studies on both sides, you should still be leaning towards the side that says it's bad. Let's say I have 20 studies here and 20 studies here, and they don't tell me the story one way or the other. If I've still got 20 studies that are telling me it's bad, I don't give a rat's ass about the 20 studies that are saying it's good at this point. It's enough to say there's a huge question mark there. And if there's a huge question mark there, this stuff should not be in our food, period. Until we can show without any real hesitation that it's totally safe for us, especially since a lot of this stuff is in the food that our kids are eating, right? It shouldn't be on the market, period. And especially it shouldn't be on the market when there are completely safe alternatives that can be used. During the press announcement for them talking about, the dyes being removed from the food over the next course of the next it's like, I think it's by the end of next year is when they're all supposed to be out. I don't know why it has to take so long, but that's at least it's on its way out at least. McCary showed carrot juice as a way that you can create orange color, beet juice for purple color, etc. There are food dyes that we can use that are perfectly 100% safe that we can use in place of these. And that's what needs to be used, not this chemical crap that they're putting into our foods that are creating toxicity. That shouldn't be there at all. So, I think this is where the date is right here. Nope. Oh, there it is. Yeah, 2010. Yeah, I knew it was from a while back. So, 15 years ago is when they're putting this out there. So people want to condemn Kennedy. I mean, you can find news articles where they're pretty much saying, oh, food dyes are not a problem. And, this is a lot of energy being wasted on food dyes when there's bigger concerns. Hey, agreed. There's bigger concerns. But anything that we can do that gets junk out of our system, that gets junk out of our food supply, that gets junk away from our kids is a worthy thing. And this is a good step forward. Is it the perfect step forward? Is it the only thing we need to do? No. But like I said, it's a good step forward and I'm happy with it. I'm happy that we're actually moving in that direction. So can we do more? Absolutely. Will we do more? Absolutely we will. But hey, be thankful for the steps that we have. And this is a good step forward, so I'm good with that. Another thing that kind of goes along in this same thing. Oh, you know what? I want us to take a step back. Let me drink of water here. I will say this. There was something that Kennedy said. He said it at least twice, if not 3 times during this press conference. And it was a pretty long press conference. Kennedy spoke for a while. Bhattacharya spoke for a while. McCary spoke for a while. So there were a bunch of different people that came up and spoke. And I heard Kennedy say this at least twice, if not 3 times. And every time these words came out of his mouth, it made me cringe and want to yell, which is unusual as a response for me for Bobby, because I love the man. I think he's fantastic, and I understand why he was saying it. Okay, I understand why he was saying it. It was kind of a political thing he was doing, but I still didn't like it. He made comments. He kept praising the food industry for their willingness to have these conversations and to make these changes. And he even brought up, well, these executives, these food executives, and I'm paraphrasing this, these food executives have children of their own. And, these are good people and they want to protect their children as well. Bullshit. I scream bullshit. These execs who know about these studies, they know about these. Their own science people know about these studies. Their companies know about these studies because they have to do marketing to make sure that these studies don't get into the public eye, or that if they do, they've got ammunition to shoot them down and say that they're worthless studies, right? They know these studies existed and they've been existing for a long time, okay? That one there was 15 years ago, but way beyond that. And so these executives have known about these issues, about these possible risks. They've known about the alternatives. And in fact, these same companies use the alternative products in other countries, but they don't use it here. So don't sit there and tell me that these are good people that want to protect their own children. Bullshit. No, they don't. Because if they did, they would have changed it already before someone was breathing down their neck saying that they're going to get forced to change it if they don't. And that's the bottom line there. So that's just a bald-faced lie. That's politics. And I hate that Kennedy was doing that, but I understand that he's trying to appease and placate a little bit to these executives to make sure that there's no challenges and they can just go through this smoothly. And so he's giving them a little pat on the back and saying, yeah, you're good people too. Thank you for getting rid of these, when he should be grabbing them by the base of the neck and saying, you should have frickin' gotten rid of these things a long time ago, right? You've kept them in the food supply because you're making money off of it, and you don't give a rat's behind about any kids, about the health of America. Because if you did, you wouldn't have put this crap into the system in the first place. Or as soon as you found out that there was even the slightest risk, you would have said, you know what, we have healthier alternatives. Let's get rid of that. Right? Makes common sense, doesn't it? And that's the bottom line. So good people, yeah, whatever. These big execs for these big companies don't give a hoot about the American people or any person on the planet for that matter, except for their own bottom line and their own pocket. That's what they care about. And the proof's in the pudding. If they cared about those things, they would have made the changes without anybody approaching them saying, you should make these changes. They would have just known it and done it, and they don't do it. So, there is no argument that is logical, reasonable at all that says that these are good people. Okay. Good people don't put toxins into food products knowingly. Okay. And put no toxins in other food for other countries, but just continue doing it here because the regulations let them do it. Just because a regulation lets you do it doesn't mean you should do it. There's right and there's wrong. And yes, you can talk about all sorts of gray areas and how some people's right and wrongs don't always match up. Agreed. But if there's the chance that something is toxic in your environment and it's your company that's doing that, the bottom line financially should be put aside and the safety of everybody else should be put paramount. Okay, that's how it should be done. And that's not the way it was done. So good people, whatever. I don't buy that for a second. So that's all I have to say about that. Yeah. Good people. Yeah. I can hear a conversation with Megyn Kelly and myself, because Megyn Kelly, the thing I love about Megyn Kelly is that she kind of just comes out and goes, she punches you right in the face with some of her opinion. And her opinion, I think I agree with almost everything she says, opinion wise, and she just gets fed up with it. She says it like it is. And I love it. Candace Owens is the same way. But Megyn just says it like it is. So, I think she and I would just be angry and yelling for 20 minutes, getting it off our chest. But, that's okay too. So that's the food dyes. And like I said, it's a step in the right direction. It's not the end all be all, but it's a step in the right direction. And it's we're 100 days into 4 years, right? We've barely scratched the surface. It's just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to happen. And this is just how things are going to start snowballing. So what else? Here's one of the big things. Fluoride. Okay. Fluoride. Kennedy has been attacked and, set upon by the media in regards to fluoride. I'm looking to see if I can find. So the media has been, anytime they even hear Kennedy's name, the media wants to immediately start to say how he's a kook. Okay. And they want to say, that Kennedy doesn't know what he's doing and that he's a conspiracy theorist. And that's all they really want to do. And so the whole idea with fluoride is that Kennedy is pushing this issue, even though there's no real support for it. In fact, whenever he was getting his confirmation hearing, you had the Democratic senators just laying into him about fluoride and saying that, it's one of the best public health safety measures we've ever done. Okay. And information like that. The information on fluoride, if you just care to do any kind of cursory look at all into it, has shown us the issue with fluoride for a long, long time. So here we go again. I'm going to bring up information here. Okay. To show you, once again, this is not a Kennedy thing. You want to keep saying it's a Kennedy thing. I'll move this down a little bit. Kennedy just happens to have the intelligence and the brains to look at information and decipher it. And one of his criticisms, this is to me a baffling criticism, and this is especially the case with vaccines and autism, which we're going to get into. They will say, well, Kennedy's a lawyer, and so he speaks like a lawyer and he thinks like a lawyer, and so therefore you can't really have a discussion with him. That's kind of crazy speak to me. I mean, yes, lawyers are trained to try to win arguments. I get that, absolutely. But for the most part, you're not going to win an argument if you don't have the right information to begin with. And if you have the right information and the other person has the wrong information, it doesn't matter that they're a lawyer. Use your own brains with your own information and overcome what they're saying, period. Okay, that's what debate is to begin with, right? Debate is you having an opinion, me having an opinion, and being able to talk with each other with some reasonable emotions, hopefully, and show, here's my data, here's your data, here's your view of that data, here's my view of that data. And if you're doing this in front of a bunch of people, let them be the judge, right? And so we're going to come back to that here in a minute. But with fluoride, the information's out there. It really is, and it has been for a long time. So I want to pull up some information, some research. I like the research, right? All right, so I'm going to put me front and center there. This is from 2018, okay? And it's a review article from India. It's talking about India. This is a person from a university in India. The untold story of fluoridation, revisiting the changing perspectives. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole article, but what I wanted to show you, because this is from, like I said, 2010, I think I just said. Yeah, 2018, sorry. I wanted to show you one piece of this. Find where I had it highlighted. There it is, down here in the conclusion. And I'll blow this up a little bit. Current evidence clearly suggests that the mechanism of action of fluoride is mainly topical and post-eruptive. Fluoride, as it is rightly said, is a double-edged sword, since topical benefits of fluoride are as good as systemic, but the risks are maximal on ingestion. The ideal recommendation would be to limit fluoride to dentifrices and mouthwashes. Adopting the precautionary principle categorizes fluoridation of community drinking water supply as an unreasonable risk. 2018, okay? So quite a while ago, and before Kennedy became HHS. But so what are we talking about here? First, let's explain something here, this post-eruptive. What they're talking about there is a tooth, let's say a child, they have a tooth that has not come out of their jaw yet. That's post-eruptive, okay? That's pre-eruptive. Post-eruptive means the tooth has already come out, okay? Post-eruptive, the tooth is actually out. These are post-eruptive, all right? And so, as I'm going to show you here with a few pieces of research, the general consensus is that the main benefit of fluoride is topical in nature, meaning fluoride toothpaste or fluoride mouth rinses that put topical fluoride on the teeth that are here already in your mouth, and then you spit that out. You don't ingest it. Okay, go and look at your toothpaste and look at the warning label on the toothpaste that tells you not to ingest the toothpaste. Right there on the toothpaste, do not ingest the toothpaste, especially in the kids' ones. They tell you do not let the kids ingest this. And if they do ingest too much of it, take them to the emergency room. I mean, it's right there in black and white, right? Yet they will tell you that, putting it in the drinking water is perfectly safe. If the science tells you that the main benefit, the main action of fluoride is topical, then there's no reason to put it into the drinking water. There's no reason. And managing the drinking water quantities, the amounts of fluoride that are found in the water, has already been shown time and time again to be obviously something that they can't always control, because the levels of fluoride are like this. You know, they're up and down, up and down, up and down. And sometimes they're above the recommended amounts. Sometimes they're below the recommended amounts. Hardly ever are they, okay, well, we said it's supposed to be, 0.07. This is where it's going to be. Finding that as a average across the country is almost impossible. So you get some communities where it's been, double the amounts that they recommend for decades before they finally figure it out and change that. So, this idea that it has to be in the water for you to get benefits from it, that is false. Revisiting fluoride in the 21st century, safety and efficacy considerations. This is from 2022, so very recent. And I will stop right here and blow this up. A series of Cochrane reviews providing an overview of the evidence available on the abilities of fluoride therapies to prevent dental caries was reported by Marino in 2014. Major findings from the reviews considered were that for topically applied fluoride treatments, there were clear decreases in caries, increment in permanent and primary dentitions for all forms of therapies and fluoride varnishes alone. Respectively, an arrest of dental caries with topically administered fluoride product was also revealed. Moreover, clear protective effects against dental caries and its prevalence in both children and adolescents were offered by the use of fluoride-containing toothpaste products, meaning topical. Unfortunately, fluorosis is when you have excess fluoride too much systemically, meaning like you're ingesting it, it creates these deteriorations of the teeth, which is called fluorosis. Well, that's dental fluorosis. You can actually get it of your whole skeleton. It's called skeletal fluorosis. So excess fluorine in your body can create skeletal and dental fluorosis, which is a weakening of the dentin in the teeth and of the bony structure itself. Unfortunately, fluorosis arises from the excessive systemic exposure meaning ingesting it, of children to fluoride during their first 6 years, a period when permanent teeth crown enamel is generated. The excessive use of fluoride can, however, give rise to acute toxicity, most especially with the ingestion of one or more doses of this agent during a short time duration, which then may give rise to adverse poisoning effects. Okay, and this is sodium fluoride. Sodium fluoride is the type of sodium that you will fluoride that you will find in public drinking water. Oh, I missed a piece here. While the use of fluoridated toothpaste is intended to produce a topical effect, in some situations the toothpaste may be ingested. This is especially a problem for young children who are first learning to brush their teeth. It is therefore universally suggested that just a smear of toothpaste be placed onto the toothbrush of children aged under 6, and that adult supervision of toothbrushing takes place for younger children. A further adverse toxicological outcome of excessive fluoride ingestion is skeletal fluorosis. I think that's all I had highlighted for this one. So once again, and so what we're seeing there is we're seeing this paper talking about, once again, topical fluoride as being what science really shows works for helping with dental caries. Ingestion can create all sorts of problems. And this kind of goes right back to that same idea with the dyes, right? These studies say it's perfectly safe. Well, these studies say it's not perfectly safe. Okay, well, since we have studies on both sides, we're just going to continue having you ingest these dyes. What? I mean, seriously? No. If you've got studies, and a lot of these are repetitive studies that are showing the possibility of problems with these products, whether it's fluoride, whether it's food dyes, what the hell? Get it out of our system. We don't need it, especially if we can do topical and not have those risk factors, right? If you can do topical fluoride and not have the risk factors, why be drinking it when there is the possibility of a problem? And of course, what Kennedy brought up, what he talked about, and he's talked about this in a lot of different news programs, is reduced intelligence in children. And he's been criticized for that. So I wanted to show you that. So this was from 2014, Water Fluoridation, a critical review of the physiological effects of ingested fluoride. I just wanted to show this one again here. As part of efforts to reduce hazardous fluoride ingestion, the practice of artificial water fluoridation should be reconsidered globally, while industrial safety measures need to be tightened in order to reduce unethical discharge of fluoride compounds into the environment. Public health approaches for global dental caries reduction that do not involve systemic ingestion of fluoride are urgently needed. What is that saying in that long couple of sentences there? Topical is better. Fluoride in the drinking water can be difficult to control the levels, which is what they just talked about there, and therefore hazardous. So once again, another review of that information. This is from 2016, Fluoride, a review of use and effects on health. Okay, so this was University of Ljubljana Zalakoska. I have no idea where that's from. Slovenia. Okay. And in this, their conclusion in this was even though fluoride can be toxic in extremely high concentrations, its topical use is safe. Once again, topical use, people, not drinking water. But let's talk about that decreased intelligence, because Kennedy gets bashed for saying this. And he says there's, I've heard of several people in some of these news programs saying there's no support for him making these accusations. Really? Okay. So here we go. This is, once again, let's look at the time period for this. This is 2007. Okay. Decreased intelligence in children and exposure to fluoride and arsenic in drinking water. So this study looked at both fluoride and arsenic. And what did they find? A significant association was observed between arsenic in urine and full IQ scores. These data suggest that children exposed to either fluoride or arsenic have increased risks of reduced IQ scores. Increased risks of IQ scores. And that may have been the only thing I highlighted in there. All right, that was just the conclusion. So that's one study. Here we go again. This is, let's look at the date again here. When was this done? This was done. All right, come on. Where is the date on this? The dates should be put somewhere very simple to find, right? Well, I'm not finding the date here. I can go back and try and find the date later for you if you wish, but regardless, prenatal fluoride exposure and cognitive outcomes in children at 4 and 6 through 12 years of age in Mexico. And so here in the conclusion, in this study, higher prenatal fluoride exposure in the general range of exposures reported for other general population samples of pregnant women and non-pregnant adults was associated with lower scores on tests of cognitive function in the offspring ages 4 and 6 through 12 years of age. I don't know, once again, if I had anything else highlighted in this. I think I just did that for quick purposes there. Okay, here we go with another one here. This one was 2004 from the Journal of Tissue Research, fluoride in drinking water in Rajasthan and its ill effects on human health. And we're going to go down here to the conclusions. Oh, I think I just highlighted that. But, if you go through this, they talk about the effects of fluoride on human health. They talk about the effects on dental enamel, creating osteoporosis, skeletal fluorosis, gastrointestinal effects, deformities and crippling fluorosis, endocrine effects, okay, like hormones, cardiovascular effects, immunological effects, neurological effects, developmental effects, effects on the immune system, effects at the molecular level. They go through a whole range. Fluoride as a carcinogen. And so lots of different information there. That's 2004. And finally, we have one here. Whoop, hang on a second here. Okay, hang on a second. It's going to ask me to save this. All right. Finally, we have one here. This is from 2019. Association between maternal fluoride exposure during pregnancy and IQ scores in offspring in Canada. It's interesting. If we say a study was done in India, we say a study was done in South America, there are people that will come out and say things that make it sound like, well, they're Indian or South American. It doesn't relate to us Americans. Like it somehow makes it not applicable to Americans. It's like, oh, well, they're rats and we're humans, and you can't compare rats and humans. That may be an argument, but to say that that humans in India or South America, for some reason, that study doesn't translate. There's a lot of reasons that you could say that in some ways, but it's just crazy. But hey, if they say Canada, right across the border from us, just weird stuff. All right. And this one, they said in the conclusions, in this study, maternal exposure to higher levels of fluoride during pregnancy was associated with lower IQ scores in children's ages 3 to 4 years old, indicating the possible need to reduce fluoride intake during pregnancy. Wow. Okay. So, once again, here we go. You want to sit there and badmouth Kennedy for saying these conspiracy theories. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's trying to rile everybody up with all this fake news. No, he's an intelligent man who reads the research. He has other resources. He has the money to be able to have a group of people go do the research for him and then have him read it. He does his homework before he opens his mouth. The one thing you will definitely know about Bobby Kennedy is he will not open his mouth to say something unless he knows that it is something that he can prove. Okay. Call that the lawyer in him. I don't care. But it also helps to validify the things that he's saying. So, we've got, what do we got? We got Utah. I think it's Utah and Florida have now already initiated fluoride bans in drinking water. Yay. Okay. Getting that out of the public consumption. It's always surprising to me that people are still drinking tap water in general, because there's so many problems with tap water. We're talking about fluoride, and fluoride is just one of many, many, many issues with most public drinking water. The number of pharmaceutical product in public drinking water is outrageous. And then, of course, you say, well, how do pharmaceutical products get into drinking water? Well, through urine, right? Urine, feces, human waste product. So essentially that's being filtered out, and those pharmaceuticals are still left there in the drinking water. So they may have filtered out the urine or the feces, but those pharmaceutical products are still in most all of the public drinking water that we have, which is another reason not to drink, water out of the tap without having some kind of filtration system that can capture some of the stuff. And those are hard to find as well. We should do a whole episode on water filtration units and the proper ones to use, because those are difficult for that. But the fact that Utah and Florida have removed that, you've got other places, I think Tennessee, I think New Hampshire, I think North Dakota. I remember the two N's. They have got bills in process to try to do the same thing, I think. And there's lots of other local communities, cities, not states, that have already made the move to get fluoride out of their individual drinking water. So the move is becoming bigger. There are more people moving in that direction, and I think it's a good thing. It's something that people in the natural community like myself have been railing against for decades. I can remember telling I stopped using fluoride in my toothpaste back in the early 90s, probably. And then when my kids were born in the early 2000s, we did not use fluoridated toothpaste with them, and we never drank the tap water. And then as I did a deeper dive with the research, I realized that the topical was actually beneficial, and as long as you didn't ingest it. So we put our kids back on fluoride toothpastes and just really emphasized the need to rinse thoroughly and remove that after you've used it topically. But this has been something on my radar for more than 30 years, or at least 30 years. So I'm really happy to see this being pushed and moved in that direction. Let's see. What are some of the other things here? I've got a little list of things that I'm looking at here. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Where was it? Let me see if I can find this. There, where did it go? So one of the big news stories that I loved seeing was the news from Bayer. And I'm going to put that in here. Bayer in the news. So yeah, so I just put in Bayer in the news, and what it came up with is Bayer is currently in the news primarily due to ongoing litigation surrounding its Roundup weed killer and its potential link to cancer. The company is facing numerous lawsuits with some injuries ordering payments in the millions. So what happened, if you haven't been watching that, Monsanto, okay, which was purchased by Bayer. Monsanto was being sued up the wazoo, and one of the major law agencies that was suing them was Kennedy's law agency, because of Roundup. Roundup is glyphosate. Okay, this is their herbicide, glyphosate. Glyphosate is a nasty product. It was I don't know what its original usage was, because who knows? A lot of things are developed for one thing and then used for something else. But glyphosate has been used for decades in the United States to try to kill weeds and to act as an herbicide to kill weeds. And you even have genetic modification of crops, specifically like corn, and I think some of the other grains that have been genetically modified to be glyphosate resistant. Okay, glyphosate resistant, right? So that the glyphosate doesn't kill the plant, which means you're now eating a plant that has been genetically modified based on that. That alone just makes me kind of not want to eat that. But glyphosate's the big issue here, and Monsanto is being sued regularly, and it took a long time, as it always does, but they started winning cases. So here's the thing with glyphosate. There, in 2015, the IARC, which is the International Agency for Research on Cancer, concluded that glyphosate is a probable human carcinogen. Now, of course, companies will take that and go, well, they said probable. They didn't say it is. Once again, they don't care about people. They care about their bottom line. So as long as they can get away with saying probable as not it is, they will do that. And then they'll continue to use the product for decades and kill people, and they don't give a rat's butt. And the reality is our government did not care for the longest time because they didn't force it to be banned, force it to be changed. Once again, if the possibility is being shown repetitively that it's a problem, it needs to be taken care of. So about 67,000 cases alleging that glyphosate has caused someone's cancer are pending still, and that the company has so far set aside $16 billion for settlements. $16 billion. March 7th, so just not that long ago, Bayer told U.S. lawmakers that it was possibly going to stop selling Roundup weed killer unless they can strengthen legal protection against product liability. Wow, where have we heard that before? This is what happened with vaccines. The pharmaceutical companies went to the government and said, hey, we're being sued too much. We cannot continue producing vaccines if we keep getting sued because we're losing money. We can't do this. So we're just going to stop producing vaccines. Instead of our government saying, well, make the product safer so you don't get sued. Hey, no brainer, right? Make the product safer so you don't get sued. Or you could then say, well, that's fine. You drop out of it. I'm sure some other pharmaceutical company will pick up the slack. Okay. They'll take the risk. Someone will develop a better vaccine that's not causing problems where you're going to get sued. Okay. And now Bayer is doing the exact same thing. They're going to US lawmakers and they're saying, we have to have protection against liability on Roundup, or we're going to stop making it and threaten you, right? And so far, they have not gotten any of that legal protection. Thank God. Okay. You take legal liability away from a manufacturer for anything, and we've talked about this before, you are now opening up a shitstorm, a can of worms that you're not going to be able to come back from. That legal liability is there to force that manufacturer to do everything in their possible ability to create a product that's not going to hurt people. If auto manufacturers weren't held liable for mistakes in manufacturing, how would we know that the cars we're driving would be safe? And it's the same thing with all these other things. You cannot take away the liability. Make a better freaking product if you don't like getting sued, is what I would tell you to do. Okay. Now, one thing that is really interesting, okay, is that Bayer is actually seeking product approval right now on a different herbicide. It's called dicamba, I think it is how you pronounce it, dicamba, which is being shown to be effective at killing glyphosate-resistant weeds. That just sounds right off the bat, without even knowing any of the science behind it, that is a huge danger area to be heading into. Let's make an even stronger herbicide than glyphosate even. Okay, we've got these weeds that are resistant to glyphosate. So let's now make an herbicide that's even stronger than glyphosate, which we already know causes cancer, which we already have $16 billion set aside for settlements. But let's seek approval for another herbicide that's worse than that one that we can then use. So not only do we need to stop these companies from, get rid of the products that are killing people like Roundup, like glyphosate, okay, but we need to stop them from creating even worse nightmares, okay? It's the same thing with the flipping mRNA COVID vaccines and the crap that those vaccines are causing. They're horrible vaccines, and really they shouldn't be called a vaccine. It's not really a vaccine. But now Trump has actually approved mRNA research for other vaccines. When we know for a fact that the mRNA vaccines never worked prior to COVID, and now since COVID, we have so much evidence to show the damage from these things. The fact that Trump would even sign anything saying let's do more research for that is incredibly disturbing. Incredibly disturbing. Just a quick comment on glyphosate. Another aspect of this, and this is definitely something we should get into it at a different point, is not only is glyphosate a human carcinogen, and it's being shown that in court, but there's a lot of good evidence pointing to glyphosate being really the main culprit in a lot of digestive issues, Crohn's and colitis, and even just gluten sensitivities, that it's not necessarily the gluten that's the problem, but it's the glyphosate in the product that's the problem. And we don't know that as a total fact yet, but there is good information pointing in that direction. And so I think we're going to find that out, though, as we go, we're going to find that information out. So yeah, so that was the information on Bayer. And so I was really happy to hear that, because I hope that they stop producing it. So that was another little piece there. What else? We've got a couple other things that I want to talk about here in this episode. I'm going to save the best one for last, but this next one here, I knew nothing about this until I watched an episode of the Dark Horse podcast. If you haven't watched the Dark Horse podcast, I highly suggest it. The Dark Horse podcast. Hang on a second here. I was trying to bring up, I want to make sure I get their names correct. Brett Weinstein and his wife, Heather Haying. They are the hosts of the Dark Horse podcast. I think they do a really good job. I've only watched a handful of episodes from their podcast, but I like their information. They're both very critical thinkers, both intellectuals, both former university professors. And this one that I watched, like I said, I did not know of this information. And so watching them talk about it, I was like the whole time, because it was so outrageous. But it turns out that Bill Gates, and I've looked this up, it's true, Bill Gates has a project that he wants to do. Now, as soon as I hear Bill Gates wants to do a project, I get shivers up my spine and I get scared, because Bill Gates, to me, is a dangerous individual. Has he done some great things for our world and society? Yes, arguably, with internet stuff, but computer stuff, whatever. But the guy seems to think that his word should be listened to by everybody and every topic. He's a bit of a narcissist and egomaniac in that respect. He seems to think that his opinion about world population, about vaccines, about medical breakthroughs, that there's somehow he has some kind of authority for that, and that we should be following his advice. He has a dominant, controlling interest in the World Health Organization. If you don't believe me, look up the research. He is one of, if not the largest donor, individual donor to the World Health Organization, which gives him a voice to the World Health Organization that has a lot of influence. And, there's a video clip of him speaking to the World Health Organization, to some big audience for them, basically talking to them in a way that sounded very, I'm saying this should happen, therefore it should happen, kind of a tone. And it was basically saying that, all nations should be on board with this hyper vaccination idea. He's on record as saying he thinks that population control is something that we should be doing. And now we've got Mr. Gates, who wants to essentially put up a blockade to prevent the sun's rays from getting to Earth. He wants to block the sun, folks. He wants to block the freaking sun. Okay, so here we go. Let me show you this. This was on the Dark Horse podcast, and of course, Brett and Heather just did a great job talking about the fallacies in his argument, what the risk factors are. I mean, there's no way to know how this would turn out. And so to allow him to do this without really understanding what the consequences could be is disastrous on a global scale, on a global destructive scale is what this is. Blocking the sun's rays. So here we go. So this is from Fortune magazine. No, Forbes, from Forbes magazine. And this was 2021. A Bill Gates venture aims to spray dust into the atmosphere to block the sun. what could go wrong? Yeah, exactly. What could go wrong? I mean, what could go wrong? The list is astronomical. And the science and the data don't, number one, don't support blocking the sun's rays. Number one, that that is then saying that yes, every single thing that the environmental alarmists say is 100% true and 100% provable. That there's a lot of debate on that, a lot of debate. I'm not going to tell you that I don't believe in global warming. I'm not going to tell you I don't believe in climate change. I'm going to tell you that the information on both sides of that discussion are very um, convincing, and there's a lot of to say that all scientists believe in climate change and global warming is absolutely 100% not true. Not true. I would say, if it's even 50-50, I don't know that, but it's not that one side, there's all these people, this is what it is, and then there's a handful of people or nobody that believes this. That's not true at all. The quantity of incredibly intelligent, qualified scientists who disbelieve and disprove a lot of the claims that the climate change alarmists present is something that should not be ignored. But our legacy media totally ignores it and poo-poos it as conspiracy, even though, once again, these are very qualified, very intelligent people making these conversations. I'm not telling you one way or the other. I am no expert on that whatsoever. I will tell you, though, not having an intelligent discourse regarding that subject is a problem, because it is a big conversation that we should be having, and the discourse should be more open. And these experts and scientists, there should be more debate. There should be more conversation on this material. So to say, well, this side's just right, the climate change people are right, these people are conspiracy theorists, we're just going to go ahead and go with what we want to do. This goes back to the Dark Horse podcast brought this up. Informed consent. If you're going to try and block the sun, this is not a localized effect. This is a global effect. This affects me and my family directly. And I am not giving you my informed consent to do that, nor has it even been requested. And so you shouldn't be forcing a medical procedure on someone without informed consent. Vaccines, okay? And you sure as hell should not be blocking the sun without not only individual consent, but even global consent. Every single nation should be able to say yes or no to this, because it affects every single living thing on this planet. And the consequences could be, it's scary. It is dystopian future movie on steroids. Okay. So anyway, you can read more on this, and look up the Dark Horse podcast for information on this. That you can watch that and see what they talked about with that. There are alternatives. There's different ways of doing this. Let's say you even did say, yes, we should do something about the sun's rays. There's lots of other methods that wouldn't be as potentially catastrophic as the ones that Bill Gates is mentioning. And so horrifying, absolutely horrifying. Yeah, that's about all I can say about that. So I told you I saved the best for last, and our last topic here has to do with autism. That is now in the news again. Not that it goes out of the news for long now because of Kennedy's position, but it's in the news again because of a lot of different reasons. So I'm gonna put these two things together, because this is not just about autism, it's about vaccines in general. So first, let's talk about the vaccines in general. And I'm hoping that you can all laugh hysterically with me at the absurdity of the way this is being addressed and presented. Kennedy has gone out and talked about demanding that from here forward, that all vaccines must have a placebo trial before they can be approved. Now, you have to understand something. And this is something I will say I'm an expert in because I have looked at this extensively for more than 20 years. The vaccine experts, the ones that you see on the news, the ones that you see in articles, Paul Offit, oh God, what's the other? Hotez, disgusting guy. These guys are pharma shills. They get paid thousands of dollars by pharmaceutical industry to be their spokespeople. Okay. And Offit, I don't know about Hotez, but Offit even makes money off of actual vaccine patents. And so these guys have a vested interest in that system. They have gone through all the medical indoctrination on trusting the holy vaccine trinity. And they've never opened their minds for even a millisecond to try and let anything in other than their view on vaccines. Now, they have, and the pharmaceutical industry has, and legacy media has, and certain governmental agencies have in the past said repetitively that all of those nut jobs, like myself, like Bobby Kennedy, who have stated for decades that the vaccine program is not being tested the way that it should, and that these products are not placebo tested. They have called us liars for decades. Decades. You can do Google searches, and I'm sure you can find all sorts of information to back that information up. I'm not going to bother wasting my time with that right now. But that's what they've told us for years. For years. Yes, Kennedy's saying that these things aren't tested properly is just conspiracy. He's lying. He's lying. He's lying. And that's what they say over and over again. And then he comes out, because he has the power to do so now, and says, we are going to test these properly from here on out. We are going to do gold standard research, which is what he's been promoting since he got into office. And people look at him like, gold standard research on these? Oh, you're a conspiracy nut. Why would you say that about that? Wouldn't you want the best research on this product? On any product, but this is one that's going to be injected into your children. Wouldn't you want the absolute best research so that it can show you the goods and the bads? Because not everything's rainbows and butterflies, which is what they like to tell you with vaccines. Okay. Wouldn't you want that? Of course you would, but that's not the way things are being presented. So let's look at this. So he makes that statement. And then what happens? Well, what happens is the news medias, this is World Socialist website. Okay. So I don't know what the hell this is, but it popped up as one of the news things. Experts warn new HHS requirement for placebo-controlled vaccine undermines public health. Undermines public health. How does demanding a placebo-controlled vaccine trial undermine public health? It should be hysterically funny, but it's not, because it's just so ridiculous. Andrew Nixon, spokesman for Department of Health and Human Services, announced on Thursday that they're moving forward. All new vaccines will undergo safety testing and placebo-controlled trials. Okay. This announcement signals a significant shift in the approach to vaccine regulation in the United States, prompting alarm among medical experts. If it wasn't so ridiculous, it should be funny. So here's something in that sentence, though. Signals a significant shift in the approach to vaccine regulation. How, if you've been telling me for decades that I was lying and I was wrong and that I was a conspiracy nut job for saying that these products were not tested properly, then how can you now say that this is a significant shift? Think about that. How is it a significant shift? That just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. It says the statement itself is another bald-faced lie and a slew of disinformation from the HHS. Boy, there's no bias in that, right? There's no bias in that. All vaccines for new pathogens are tested against a placebo. Okay. So here's where we have to clarify something. If you want to sit there and tell me, if you want to sit there and tell me that a placebo can be pretty much anything, then you're going to be correct in making that statement, that the vaccines were tested against a placebo. But if I was to go out on the street to anybody with half a brain of information regarding testing of anything and ask them what it means to test something against a placebo, okay? The average intelligent human being would tell you this, that a placebo is something that's inert. A placebo is something that has no effect. So in other words, I would test this drug against this saline solution. Nothing else in it, just saline, salt water, nothing. That's it. Okay. Inert. This cannot cause an issue. And this is what we're comparing it to. And so to say that vaccines have been tested against a placebo, okay, is a lie if you're thinking it's that. Okay. It's a lie if you're thinking it's that. The vast majority of testing for vaccines has been done against what they're calling a placebo. And in the first part of some of the trial information that you read, it'll say placebo, 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 placebo. But then when you look further into that and you look to what that placebo was, you realize that they're redefining the word placebo to fit what they want to happen. If you're taking a new vaccine, here's my new vaccine, and it's got all of the crap that they put in there, aluminum and formaldehyde and aborted fetal cells and all the other crap that's in there, egg albumin, peanut traces, whatever, and the antigen, okay? And then you're saying, here's my placebo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the antigen, leave all the other crap, the aluminum, the formaldehyde, and put that over here. So I'm testing this new vaccine against a injection that has everything except for the antigen in it. That's not a placebo. That's not a placebo, okay? Because one of the things that's going to be reactive in that thing is things like aluminum. How do you know that the aluminum is causing a reaction or not? Well, you do it against a placebo. But they make this assumption that the extra added ingredients, the adjuvants, et cetera, that are in these vaccines are in and of themselves safe. And so therefore, if we put them in a placebo injection, that it's like inert, okay? And they'll give you all sorts of information about why they can do this. There's different ways of doing testing. If we test it this way, it's getting this result. This way, it's this result. Here's the problem. If I test this vaccine and I test it on a placebo that is like I just stated, it's got all the crap in it still, okay? Then this vaccine was never properly tested. And then when we come up with another vaccine and we test it against this vaccine that was tested, we say that that's the placebo because we proved that this one was safe. So therefore, we're going to use the new vaccine and a vaccine we proved was safe. That's your placebo. No, it's not, especially when this vaccine was never proven safe to begin with because it was never done on a placebo. And this is how this whole thing continues. And so what we're going to have now and what we should have always had was placebo, inert, pure placebo testing. And long term, if you look at the clinical trials for most of these vaccines, we're talking like 3 months, 5 days worth of testing. And you can't show anything within that time period of any real scientific value. So these need to be longer term studies on inert placebos, period. End stop. That's proper science. And for anyone to make claims like this and to state problems with this, okay? I think I had another one here. So is the new HHS vaccine requirement anti-vaccine activism disguised as policy? This is the kind of stuff that we get in this, okay? Here we go. This is from Northwestern Now for journalists. Placebo testing vaccines is unethical, a waste of time and money, experts say. A little like making basketball players do tryouts before every game. Really? Is it really that? Is it really like a basketball tryout thing? I mean, honestly. slowing down the process is not unethical. It's scientific necessity. We're injecting this garbage into our kids. And if you want to continue doing that, you sure as hell better test them properly before you expect to do so. And so this is, once again, more of the legacy media shouting to the world that, you know, there's a problem with everything that Kennedy's doing. Okay. And so this whole placebo thing, this is, once again, this is Kennedy building up steam. Okay. These products have to be tested properly. And they yelled from the tops of their mountains that they were being tested properly. Now, because they're being forced to test them properly, now they're yelling from the top of their mountain that we've always tested them properly, and this is now unethical to say that we're going to test them properly. That just doesn't even make any freaking sense. None at all. So, you know, yay for Kennedy. I support him 1000%. And all of you who watch this, you know, you really do need to send information to your senators and telling them, you know, we support this. We support Kennedy going after this, having good quality science. Hey, I would be the first to tell you, if they do all the best quality science under Kennedy's, you know, guidance, and what it comes out as is vaccines are perfectly safe. They do not cause autism. Everything's okay. And everything we've been talking about for decades has been a waste of time, that I wasted all this energy for decades with this. I'm going to be bummed about that. But I will tell you, I will accept that. I will move on. Okay. I can tell you that from my perspective now, it's going to be the biggest shocker in the world to me if that's what that came out as, because I've seen the data, I've seen the information, I've read the material. I can't imagine that anything they do is going to change that, but change it. If vaccines are perfectly safe, if everything's good, show that to me, and show it to me with good quality science, without all the politicalization, without all of the monetary influence, without all of the, you know, pharmaceutical company control. And then let's talk about that. Let's talk about other control. Okay. When Kennedy was first coming into HHS, okay, and remember, HHS oversees the FDA, the CDC, et cetera. Peter Marks, who was the former, and it's already up here, former CBER head, Peter Marks, it came out that RFK made this comment, and Del Bigtree on the High Wire screamed this out loud, that immediately a request was put in for all of the VAERS, the vaccine safety data, the VSD information, the vaccine safety data. That vaccine safety data there's something called the vaccine safety data link, and over 10 million Americans information, various HMOs from across the country. The information is there that would allow a pretty simple vaccinated versus unvaccinated study to be done. Okay. That information has been available for the FDA, for the HHS, et cetera, for decades. And it has been requested repetitively that they do a vaccinated, unvaccinated study. And it's been requested that they use this information from the vaccine safety data link to do that study, because it would not involve then keeping kids from getting vaccinated, which they always said was unethical. That's why they couldn't do the study. BS. You know, saying that keeping that from kids is saying that it's proven that they're safe, but you can't prove it's safe without doing the damn study. So, you know, they get into this loop. But when he requested this information, he came out publicly and he said, Peter Marks blocked me from having the information. He took the information and returned it all back to the HMOs, and it's now going to be much more difficult to retrieve this information so that we can look at it. So he basically made it not impossible, but really difficult now to do this, because he took the data and blocked me from getting to it. And of course, the news media came out and said he was lying about this, that it wasn't true, that this didn't happen. Here we go, right here. Former CBER head Peter Marks says he blocked RFK Jr. from vaccine safety database before he left the FDA. That should be a criminal act. It should be illegal. There should be prosecution against Peter Marks for doing that all alone. That blocking of information from him is going to make things really hard, really difficult to get that proper study done now. So right off the bat, the high-profile departure of Peter Marks was linked to his advocacy for vaccines, blah, 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 blah. Here, now Marks is making it clear his abrupt resignation came after he held his ground trying to block Kennedy from unfettered access to a federal vaccine safety database. Let's stop there for a second. Guess what? As head of HHS, his unfettered access to this federal vaccine safety database is part of his job. It's what he's supposed to have access to. So Marks's job is not to deny the head of HHS access to this. That's not his job. That's his political, personal opinion, creating an action that should be illegal, and he should have prosecution against so. Previously, Marks had alluded to RFK Jr., calling him out for his misinformation. Okay. The plan hinged on revamping HHS's vaccine adverse reporting system. What am I trying to get to here? Beyond concerns of Marks cited a lack. So Marks cited a lack of trust in his belief that they'd write over it or erase the whole database. So because he thought that Bobby Kennedy was going to come in and manipulate the data, he blocked it off from him and sent the information back to the HMOs. So as opposed to having the database readily available so that the statisticians, the people could come in and do the research pretty simply, pretty quickly, he basically got rid of it. It's like shredding files, okay? It's like shredding files. So he basically shredded the files. He shredded the evidence that could be used easily to do an unvaccinated, vaccinated study. And so now it's going to be more difficult. So this is the kind of opposition that Kennedy is coming into his position with, that he's having to fight through. He's having to swim upstream against piranha to get to the information that he needs to do. So this is what he's doing. Let's talk quickly about something else. I don't want to do this first. Let me get out of here. I want to share something else here with you. Okay. So this image I'm going to show you has to do with autism. Another big conference that Kennedy had to do with autism statistics. And of course, that just makes people freak out. These vaccine proponents do not want to hear anything that has to do with vaccines and autism. My God, they freak out. The level of freak out is crazy. So here, I want to show you this. I'm going to bring this up higher here. Bring my little thing out of the way here. So this is taken from the CDC. Okay. Notice that in 1970, the reports of autism were about 1 in 10,000. Okay. 1 in 10,000 in 1970. And look at the exponential increase. Okay. It is now 1 in 31. And in fact, in certain areas of California, it's 1 in 12.5 for boys. Okay. Now, notice this. Notice the rise. Okay. And how it's, slow, but it is going up, but it's slow. And then right in this area here, it starts to go up dramatically. It's like a little bit. And then now look at the difference here as it starts to go up. Guess what was happening right here around 1990? Okay. That is when the vaccine manufacturers got carte blanche to do whatever the hell they wanted to do with vaccines, no liability. Guess what happened immediately? And I mean immediately, within a year, 2 years, we went from having less than a handful of vaccines in our schedule to it doubling, tripling, quadrupling. The number of dosing of our children with vaccine product went up exponentially. And now look what happens. In the 1990s, it is already exponential compared to the 70s, and it just skyrockets almost straight up to 1 in 31. Okay. And if we compare this to, that is not the one I wanted to see. That's the one I wanted to see. This is the dosing. Okay. So what you're seeing on the left here, this is vaccine number according to cumulative doses. Okay. Vaccine number according to cumulative doses. Here is 1920. Okay. 1920. And we see it go up quite a bit, but then it basically levels off from 1940-ish all the way to, once again, around 1970, right? Almost nothing. And then in 1970, vaccine dosing goes up, and the vaccine dosing continues to go up. And notice how this rise, along with this rise, are almost parallel with each other. Not quite, right? But absolutely, there is a very noticeable rise in the dosing of vaccine and a very noticeable rise in autism. And they are, unsurprising to me, very similar, very similar. Okay. Now, here is, whoa, what did I just do there? Okay. Let's come back over here. This is the CDC website. And like I said, I just showed you that one image where a lot of this was coming from. And this is the CDC website, you know, and they show this. 2022 was when the most recent study was done. So that was 3 years ago. Who knows what it is now, right? But the most recent study was done 2022, and that was 1 in 31. And so the exponential increase in autism from even 2000, 1 in 150, to now 1 in 31, that's insanity. It's absolute insanity. Walter, and I'm going to totally butcher his name. I'm going to bring it up here. You can pronounce it for yourself. This guy, Walter something or another. He is considered an expert on autism. And of course, Newsweek had to look into this because they were like, who is this guy? Who's RFK Jr. Saying is this expert? This guy is the one who actually led the study that I was just showing you from 2022. And I want to read to you what he states here. Let me get rid of Bobby here. Okay. So Kennedy and Walter, I'm just going to call him Walter. He's my buddy, Walter, participated in a press conference on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. to discuss concerning data. Autism prevalence increased 1 in 36 to 1 in 31. The news report was done in 16 U.S. sites in 2022. And the last prevalence from 2000 was 1 in 150. Now, this guy, Walter, he's associate professor of pediatrics at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, who directed the New Jersey portion of this study. And he called the results consistent, broad, and startling. He went on to say, he's been the director of the New Jersey Autism Study for over 20 years, monitoring data in concert with the CDC. So I think he's got a little legitimacy here. Bachelor's in psychology, PhD in social research. So he knows what he's doing. He began his autism research expecting 2 to 3 baseline studies to establish how many children had ASD because it was not expected that autism prevalence would increase. Other childhood disabilities, neurological disorders, do not change over time, but somehow, for some reason, with autism, everything was different. Autism went from being a very unusual, rare disability which affected one child in maybe 10,000 to being known in every community, every school district, every center that cares for children and disabilities. He referred to ASD as real and a true disability rather than a personality quirk. Everything changes, including family systems, etc. So I'm going to leave that there. Okay. There are the critics that want to say this: autism, the increase in autism can be explained um, simply by increased awareness. Increased awareness is what can determine that. So I'm going to show you this again. I want to show you this again. Increased awareness can explain. Increased awareness and diagnostics are going to explain this skyrocketing incidence. Okay. Let's think about this logically just for a second. And I realize this is not a scientific argument, but it could be a scientific argument if it was done properly. But if this was just diagnostic and awareness, then that would imply that prior to this increase, in other words, all the way back through here, that all of these autistic people just existed. They were already there. They were there in our society. They were there all around us, but we just didn't have the awareness and we didn't have the diagnostic criteria available to properly understand what it was. But it was always there. I cry bullshit again. Okay. I was born in 1966. For everybody who was born anywhere around my time or earlier, or even born 10 to 15 years after me, okay? I want you to think right now, count on your hands how many people you knew growing up in school, from elementary school all the way to even college, if you want to, that you knew had autism. I'll start you off. 0. That's how many I can remember. Okay. Now, that could be because my memory is not perfect and there was somebody there. It could be that just happenstance. I didn't have anybody in all of the different schools I went to. I went to 3 different elementary schools. I went to a junior high school. I went to a high school. I went to several different colleges before I finished all my degrees. Not one person, 0 that I knew with autism. Not one family in my community. I grew up in an area of Texas, not considered a small town statistically, but very, very small town feel to it. Nobody, not one. Mental retardation, which is what we called it then. So get over yourself. Mental retardation. Yes, there were some people that had mental retardation, those types of psychological issues. Not autism, though. That was not autism. Okay. And if you think about it now, the children now who we are seeing, my son and my daughter, who, obviously grew up in a much different time, they could fill up both hands easily with the number of people with autism. Okay. Most of that not severe, but some of it very severe. I personally, through knowing warrior moms whose kids have been injured, through being part of the organizations here in Ohio for fighting for health freedom, I've met thousands of people with vaccine damaged children. Most of this autistic spectrum disorders, and most of it on the severe side. We're talking nonverbal, not able to go have bowel movements. They have diapers, banging their heads on the wall, hurting themselves, hurting other people. These people are not going to be able to hold jobs. Now, that's only 25, 26% of the people on that spectrum. Where were they? Where are they? I heard someone making an argument. They said, well, that's because people with that type of autism, die before they're 50. That still doesn't explain. I just told you I knew 0. If your statement was true, I should know at least one, but nothing, 0. I've had this same conversation with dozens of people from my age group, and they came up with the exact same number, 0. So this is not diagnostic. That is an argument being made to try to stop the conversation regarding vaccines. When you see this chart with the vaccines going up, the autism rates going up, you have to then investigate this, and you have to investigate it hard. If it's uncomfortable for you, if you don't like it, tough. that type of evidence, whether you call it circumstantial or not, cannot be ignored. It has to be investigated. So this new information with the rates of autism going up yet again, and there's no end in sight for that, right? It's going to go up again. It will, because nothing has changed in the environmental exposures that are causing this. That has to be an environmental exposure. And the only environmental exposure that all of these people are being exposed to is vaccines. Could there be other things involved in it? Yeah, I think there is. I think there's probably mitochondrial disorder. I think there's other genetic issues that might be prevalent in certain populations that make them predisposed to having vaccines create this in them. But that doesn't take any culpability away from the vaccines. It just means that these vaccines are causing the injuries on these particular individuals because of their inherent weakness for this. But we have to understand that, and we have to see it. So that's the synopsis of everything that's been going on in the news. There's maybe some things I missed, but there's a lot of stuff there over the past month or so. Bottom line, I hope everybody really gives Bobby and his team of individuals the room that they need, the love and support that they need, the prayers that they need to do their job the way they need to do it. Give them the support. Get the hell out of their way. Give them the support that they need and let them do their jobs. They're not trying to destroy everything that you may hold dear. What they're trying to do is find truth. They're trying to protect American citizens, and especially they're trying to protect your children. And so let them do their job. Let them do their job. All right. I'm glad to be back. It felt good to get that off my chest. So we've got exciting things coming for you. Like I said, because of the schedule the way it is, the once a month, first Monday of every month, I'm going to have time to prepare to have interviews, and I've got a couple people lined up, which I think will be fun and exciting information for you. I've got a person to come in to talk about upper cervical chiropractic care. It's a very specific type of care that has very dramatic benefits with some pretty amazing success results. I'd like to talk about that. Got another guy, we call him the mushroom guy, who is a mushroom expert in foraging mushrooms and making mushroom tinctures and understanding the potency of mushrooms and how they affect your life. He's an interesting individual and got some exciting information. So I got these people lined up. I've got other stuff in the works. And so like I've always said from the first day at the beginning of this year, this is going to get better and better and better and better. So keep tuning in, and please share this with other people, get them to watch as well. And send your emails to me. Ask me questions. I'm here to answer those for you. So until next time, I will catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.